Welcome to Dark History Horrors, the true stories history tried to bury. Everything you're about to hear is true. In 1917, hundreds of young women took jobs at the Radium Dial Company in New Jersey. They were told they were the luckiest girls in America. Their job? Painting watch dials with a new miracle substance called radium. It glowed in the dark without electricity. It was revolutionary. The girls would come home from work glowing. Their clothes, their hair, even their skin would shimmer in the dark. They thought it was magical. Radium was everywhere in the 1920s. Radium face cream, radium water, radium chocolate. Doctors called it the miracle element that cured everything. But these young women were about to discover the horrifying truth, and their suffering would change workplace safety laws forever. This is Dark History Horrors. The United States Radium Corporation offered good wages, clean work, and prestige. These weren't just factory jobs, they were skilled positions. Girls as young as 14 were trained in a specific technique called lip pointing. They'd put the brush in their mouth, point it with their lips, dip it in radium paint, and paint the tiny numbers. Lip, dip, paint, lip, dip, paint. Each girl would do this hundreds of times per day. Every time they'd ingest a small amount of radium. The managers and chemists who handled radium wore lead aprons and used tongs. They never touched it directly, but the girls, they were told it was completely harmless. Company literature said radium paint would put a glow in their cheeks and make them healthier. Some doctors even recommended radium as a health tonic. After work, the girls became local celebrities. They'd wear their best dresses to dances, and in the dark rooms they'd glow like ghosts. Some painted their fingernails with the radium paint. Others painted their teeth before dates so their smiles would glow. It was like having a superpower. They earned about 75 cents per day. Good money for young women in 1917. Many supported their entire families with these wages. Grace Fryer was one of the original dial painters. She was proud of her work, skilled with her hands, and grateful for the opportunity. Molly Maggia was another star employee. Fast, precise, cheerful. The company loved workers like her. She had no idea what was happening inside her body. By 1922, some of the dial painters started feeling sick, fatigue, aching joints, loose teeth. Grace Fryer went to the dentist for a toothache. The dentist pulled the tooth, then another fell out, then another. When he x-rayed her jaw, he saw something terrifying. Her jawbone was full of holes, disintegrating from the inside. Molly Maggia developed an abscess in her jaw. The pain was unbearable. Her dentist began removing teeth, but they kept falling out on their own. Her lower jaw started to break apart. When her dentist tried to examine her, he removed her entire lower jawbone. It just lifted right out of her mouth. The radium had eaten through her jugular vein. Molly Maggia hemorrhaged and bled to death in 1922. She was 24 years old. Her death certificate said she died of syphilis. The company wanted to avoid blame, so they claimed she had an immoral lifestyle. This was a lie. More women started dying. Anemia, bone fractures, jaw necrosis. The same horrifying symptoms kept appearing. Doctors were baffled. What disease caused bones to glow in the dark? Because that's what was happening. Their bones literally glowed with radioactivity. The United States Radium Corporation knew something was wrong, but instead of helping the women, they started covering it up. Internal company memos show they knew radium was dangerous as early as 1924. They commissioned studies and then buried the results. The company sent sick workers to doctors they paid. These doctors would diagnose anything except radium poisoning. The women were told they had neurasthenia, a catch-all term for female hysteria. They were told their pain was psychological. When rumors started spreading, the company planted stories in newspapers claiming the women were simply suffering from bad dental hygiene. Meanwhile, independent scientists started investigating. They measured the women with radiation detectors. The needles went wild. These women's bodies had become radioactive. Their breath, their blood, even their bones glowed with deadly radiation. Here's what was happening. Radium is chemically similar to calcium. When they ingested it, their bodies stored it in their bones, thinking it was calcium. From inside their skeletons, the radium emitted constant radiation, destroying bone cells faster than they could regenerate. Their bones were rotting from within. Radium-226 has a half-life of 1,600 years. The poison in their bodies would outlive them by millennia. By 1925, Grace Fryer could barely walk. Her spine was deteriorating. Every bone in her body ached. She was 23 years old. Grace Fryer decided to sue. She needed to find a lawyer willing to take on a massive corporation. It took her 2 years. In 1927, lawyer Raymond Berry agreed to take her case, but he needed more plaintiffs to make it impossible to ignore. Grace recruited 4 other dying women: Catherine Schaub, Edna Hussman, Albina Larice, and Quinta McDonald. They became known as the Radium Girls. They filed a lawsuit against the United States Radium Corporation for $50,000 each, about $800,000 in today's money. The company hired the best lawyers money could buy. Their strategy: delay everything until the women died. The company filed motion after motion, postponements, continuances. They knew time was their weapon. By the time the trial was scheduled, Grace could barely hold a pen to sign her name. She had to be carried into court. When the trial finally began, it became a media sensation. Reporters packed the courtroom. The public was outraged. Headlines screamed, "Radium Girls fight for lives in court. Corporation condemned for deadly negligence." Expert witnesses brought radiation detectors into court. They measured the women right there. The instruments confirmed they were radioactive. Company executives were forced to testify. Under oath, they admitted they knew radium was dangerous. They just didn't tell the workers. Public pressure became overwhelming. Protests erupted outside the company's offices. The corporation's reputation was destroyed. Facing certain defeat and massive public backlash, the company agreed to settle out of court in 1928. Each woman received $10,000, all medical expenses paid, and a $600 annual pension. Not nearly enough, but it was acknowledgement. More importantly, they'd won. They'd proven the company knew and lied. They'd set a legal precedent that would protect millions of workers. Grace Fryer died in 1933 at age 34. Her bones were so fragile that when she died, her spine crumbled. All 5 women died within a few years, but they died knowing they'd changed history. In 1938, Molly Maggia's body was exhumed. 15 years after her death, her remains were still glowing. A Geiger counter held near her coffin registered massive radiation. The radium in her bones would outlast her by thousands of years. The Radium Girls case led to new occupational safety standards. Companies could no longer claim ignorance about workplace hazards. Their fight laid groundwork for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, created in 1970. Today's workplace safety regulations, protective equipment, hazard warnings, right-to-know laws exist because these women fought back. The radium dial industry eventually died out. By the 1960s, safer luminescent materials had replaced radium paint. The factory sites remained dangerously radioactive. Cleanup efforts continue even today, almost a century later. In 2011, the Radium Girls were finally honored with historical markers acknowledging their sacrifice and courage. The radiation hazard symbol we all recognize, it exists partly because of what happened to these women. Today, anyone working with radioactive materials uses extensive safety protocols. No one would dream of telling workers to put radium in their mouths. The legal precedent from their case has been cited in thousands of workplace injury lawsuits since. Their story has been told in books, plays, and documentaries, but many people still don't know what these young women endured. Over 70 women died from radium poisoning. These are just some of their faces. Each had a name, a family, dreams for the future. Grace Fryer wasn't a scientist or an activist. She was a young woman who wanted to make a living. She trusted her employer. She believed them when they said the work was safe. Her employer chose profit over human life. They knew radium was deadly, and they let these women die anyway. But Grace and the other Radium Girls refused to die quietly. Even as their bodies betrayed them, they fought. Every workplace safety regulation we have today is written in someone's blood. The Radium Girls' blood helped write those laws. This is Dark History Horrors. Everything is real, everything is researched. Subscribe for more true stories they tried to hide. The truth is terrifying enough.